इसमें मटेरियल कहाँ रखा? नहीं, मैंने मटेरियल दे रखा है, कहाँ है वो? Okay. So good morning, friends. Uh, so we'll be starting little bit late. Unfortunately, you saw that it was first class, so many things were not set. So today we'll be seeing. I am because this class is also live on YouTube, open class. So those of you who are watching in the YouTube, the purpose of the class being open is very clear, that you also see that what actually happens in the inside the classes. So देखेंगे कि why this program has been so much magical over the years. It has produced immense results and it is one of the signature programs of my. It was a brainchild of my. उसके बाद देखा होगा तुमने कि काफ़ी सारे लोग कॉपी करते हैं. So when I actually came and started, I found that there was a very big gap in what was being taught in the foundation classes and what was required for UPSC. So first I started with the test series. It was way back in 2015, and I realized that test series has its own limitations. It was random, so there needed to be some type of course which will bridge the content gap mainly. I really believe that in geography optional, the biggest problem is the content gap. If you do not have the content, you will not be able to write answer. It is as simple as that. So again, I thought that this kind of program where enough number of questions are there, where we are able to cover the syllabus holistically. And by 2017, it was a very, very hit course. It used to be something like कि अभी geography में थोड़े numbers of students are less, but at that time it used to be like कि पत्थर उठा करके मारो ORN में, तो अगर किसी को लगता है और उससे पूछो कि तुम्हारा ऑप्शनल क्या है, तो दिल से कि either geography or pub ed. It used to be like that. Okay. So before we start, first few minutes, what we'll do, we'll just lay out the chart of what we are essentially, how we will be proceeding in the 500 plus, what you have to do, what I have to do. Let us discuss all these aspects so that there is very clear idea, there is high clarity on what is our roles. So again, I have told you there are certain topics for which I will be taking care of it entirely. And those topics which I will be taking care entirely are section B of paper 1. Okay? So it is section B, paper 1, that is your human geography. There is an exception, पिछली ओरिएंटेशन क्लास में भी बताया था, and the exception is the basics of models and theories. This is a topic which I believe everywhere is being taught. If you do not have book for this, or if you do not have notes for this, go for Majid Hussain Models in Geography. It is good for this topic. For example, if you look today's feed book which I will be giving. So in this feed book, I have first introduced certain concepts. I was checking the test copies, I was evaluating the test copies, and one thing I found was very starking for me, and it was like I was very sad with that. किसी को ढंग से definition नहीं पता है कि what is optimum population, what is overpopulation, and what is underpopulation. So again, what I have done, I have given you little bit about, I know few things you do not have, और वो मुझे पता है कि तुम्हारे पास क्या है क्या नहीं है. So Ackerman's resource population resource region वो मैंने पहले दे दिया तुमको, ठीक है. उसके बाद we are doing the questions. Okay, and again in the questions it will be mix. This year 500 plus will focus more on writing in the class, because I think this traditional way is the most powerful way of learning and preparing for the exam. There will be certain areas जहाँ पे direct content दूंगा, but more I'll try to have will write in the classes. ठीक है? Because one thing students have asked me before has been that there is a feed book and there is essentially the class notes. उसको कौन सा we focus upon. So we'll eliminate this kind of duplicacy. Feed book, I'm actually the feed book, उसका नाम feed book हमने इसीलिए रखा था कि facts, examples, illustrations like this, diagrams, etc. That why is why it was named as fifth deck. Over the period of time, it continued to become more bulky, but I'll try to make sure it is less this time. So can you see I have just given here some important diagrams which I believe that is very good. Another thing is some case studies I have given with respect to that question. So that kind of quality enrichment. Three, as we have seen, which is required for making your answers geographical. One is the diagrams, the most powerful technique. Second, if you talk about is the examples, case studies, and third, if you talk about is the theoretical linkages. So we'll do the theoretical linkages in the class itself. Same way, you'll see at places where I think we have to little bit save time, easy concept. I have given it like that. ठीक है. देन आई नो फॉर एग्जाम्पल नियो माल्थुजियन पे तुम्हारे पास अच्छा कंटेंट नहीं है, तो मैंने क्या किया, नियो माल्थुजियन का यहाँ पर कंटेंट पुटअप कर दिया है एंड वेरी वेरी गुड कंटेंट आई हैव गिवन. एवरीथिंग एस्पेक्ट, ऑल एस्पेक्ट्स रिलेटेड विद नियो माल्थुजियंस आर कवर्ड देयर. ठीक है. सो व्हाई आई एम शोइंग दिस इन द बिगनिंग, बिकॉज एज आई टोल्ड यू, it is my promise to make sure that section B of human geography is entirely covered. उसके लिए तुम्हें बिल्कुल भी भागना नहीं पड़ेगा. एक स्टूडेंट के लिए सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या है? कंफ्यूजन. मुझे लगता है कि अगर किसी सबको क्लैरिटी हो कि एग्जैक्टली क्या पढ़ना है और क्या पढ़ के हमें एग्जाम में जाना है, मुझे लगता है कि देन दिस एग्जाम बिकम्स मोर लाइक अ बोर्ड एग्जाम. जैसे हम बोर्ड में होता था कि हम अपना जो सिलेबस होता था उसको पढ़ा और गए एंड वी परफॉर्म्ड. सो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स विल बी एबल टू परफॉर्म. दिस इज द बेसिक आइडिया. 500 plus will give you that completion sense. ठीक है. So I'm very clear, इसके लिए you will not need anything else. ठीक है. Then for majority of your paper 2, उसको भी मैं पूरा कवर कर लूँगा. ठीक है. I know that paper 2 is another area which has been just given a passing reference in the foundation classes. So we'll be again doing very well entire paper 2. And if you look, one thing is very clear, 500 plus कैसे cover करता है topics को, topic by topic. Every topic will touch in the 500 plus classes. ठीक है. So nothing will be left untouched. ठीक है. जिसमें अगर सपोज करो मुझे लगता है कि लास्ट ईयर ही इसमें क्वेश्चन आया है और उस टॉपिक पे मैं क्वेश्चन नहीं ले रहा हूँ, उसके बारे में भी मैं तुम्हें थोड़ा बहुत बता दूंगा. ठीक है. So everything, every topic, there will be no topic which will be left untouched. So that is the case of paper 2. Then if you talk about certain areas like biogeography and environmental geography. Environmental geography plus your landform development, geomorphology, that part जिसके अंदर there are number of topics, factors controlling landform development, endogenetic, exogenetic processes, slope development, concepts of cycle of erosion and landscape development, denudation chronology, erosion surface, channel morphology. ये सारे के सारे chapters, ये सारे के सारे topics मैं इतने अच्छे से क्लास में करवा दूंगा. You will not need anything else. Once you, after the class, when you will see books, you will feel कि ये फालतू में, ये फालतू है. It will be like that. Those areas are so much strong areas of mine. So this is how much of the syllabus? I believe it is around 70% of the syllabus. ठीक है. We'll do this in the classes itself. You'll not need anything else, and I'm very sure हर साल होता है. You'll find that the 500 notes will become your primary notes. बाकी जितने भी notes हैं तुम्हारे वो बेकार हो जाएंगे उसके बाद. ठीक है. That is very very clear. हर साल, every year this thing happens. So there should be no confusion with regard to what we are going to do. Few things I have told, like tectonic geomorphology, climatology, oceanography. ठीक है. एंड द बेसिक्स ऑफ मॉडल्स एंड थ्योरीज वो खुद से करना है. हालांकि उसके लिए भी आई हैव, बिकॉज आई हैव टेकन सम क्लासेस बिफोर इन 500 प्लस, टेक्टोनिक जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी की, क्लाइमेटोलॉजी की एंड ओशनोग्राफी की, आई विल बी अपलोडिंग दैट. ठीक है, वी विल अपलोड दिस वीक इटसेल्फ, वी विल अपलोड दैट. So that whenever you get time, you watch them. Those are the areas, they are very very important. ठीक है, अभी हम देखते हैं. So that is the first thing that has to be very very clear. एक और चीज, मुझे जो भी इस 500 प्लस प्रोग्राम को अटेंड करेगा, आई वांट टू प्रॉमिस फ्रॉम यू, जोग्राफर्स बिगेस्ट ड्रीम, ठीक है, इट वॉज टू अचीव सिंथेसिस इन जोग्राफी. Verenius said that geography is a subject full of contradictions. He called it as dichotomy dualism. Since then, geographers' biggest dream has been synthesis in geography, to achieve synthesis with respect to subject matter, to achieve synthesis with respect to approach, to achieve synthesis with respect to various other concepts in geography. ठीक है, लेकिन I don't want you to achieve that synthesis. ये जो तुम लोगों का जो फंडा है कि वो पुराने वाले नोट्स भी और ये नए वाले अच्छे हैं, तो दोनों को मिलाकर एक बढ़िया सा सिंथेसिस नोट्स बनाता हूँ. ठीक है, आई हैव सैम्पल्स ऑफ मेनी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स हु हैव डन दैट. ठीक है, उनके नोट्स मैंने ले लिए फोटोकॉपी करा करके, अब उससे बहुत सारे और लोग सेलेक्ट हो रहे हैं. ठीक है, सो इफ यू वांट समथिंग लाइक दैट, दिस काइंड ऑफ पेन कि तुम्हारे नोट्स पढ़ के कोई और सेलेक्ट होगा, तो अब तो ठीक है, करो. बिकॉज आई एम 100% श्योर इफ यू विल डू दिस, यू विल नॉट गेट सेलेक्टेड. दिस एग्जाम इज वेरी ब्रूटल. दिस एग्जाम इज ऑल अबाउट मेमोराइजेशन. कोई और कुछ भी बोलता है, वो झूठ बोल रहा है, वो तुम्हें बेवकूफ बना रहा है. दिस एग्जाम इज ऑल अबाउट मेमोराइजेशन. Person who can memorize, who can revise things again and again will be the person who will succeed. और इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं. जितनी ज्यादा बार रिवाइज करोगे, उतना ज्यादा एनालिसिस आ जाएगा, उतना ज्यादा समझ में आ जाएगा. दिस इज समथिंग विच हैज टू बी वेरी वेरी क्लियर. आई होप इन दिस देयर इज क्लैरिटी. ठीक है, अगर तुम्हें कुछ और पढ़ना भी है तो उसको बाद में पढ़ो. ठीक है, फर्स्ट थिंग इज व्हाट आई विल, इफ आई हैव टू प्रिपेयर, I'll first prepare my core and then add layers over this core. I will not do my preparation like this. First, what needs to be done? The core needs to be prepared. ठीक है? So, that is first thing about the content that you have to study. Then, what will be the way we will be moving in the 500 plus? As you can see, this is the set of questions. First set of questions I have taken. Our target will be to complete 10 questions. However, एक general अगर मैं बोलूँ तो we are able to complete 8 questions. ठीक है, somewhere around 8 questions एक average निकलता है पूरे 500 plus का. कुछ days ऐसे भी होते हैं जिसमें थ्योरी ज़्यादा होती है, तो उसमें थोड़ा ज़्यादा टाइम लगता है, तो उसमें हो सकता है कि 3-4 ही क्वेश्चन हो पाए. ठीक है, this has also happened. For example, when I'm teaching you or when we are talking about lost central place theory, I know कितने लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं जिसको lost central place theory पूरी समझ में आती. अगर यहाँ पे टीचर्स भी बैठे होते और मैं पूछता कि कॉन्फिडेंट हो, तो वो भी हाथ नहीं उठाते, बिकॉज दे ऑल्सो डोंट अंडरस्टैंड. ठीक है, सो आई नो दैट दिस इज एन एरिया which you do not fully understand, so essentially I'll spend little bit more time to make sure that you fully understand it. ठीक है. Now, here you can see there will be topics. The PYQs which have been asked from that topic will be given also, and there will be the session questions. These are the session questions which we'll be discussing in the classes. Every questions will take up, and I will give you 2 minutes. These 2 minutes you have choice. You can waste them like majority of them do. These 2 minutes you can do what? You can brainstorm and frame your answer. I am very positive about this, that brainstorming and framing answer is equal to answer writing, because your mind is essentially writing the answer. Your mind is doing active recall. So if you want to fully utilize the 500 plus classes, you'll have to sit in the class, you'll have to do that activity 2 minutes for every question. One more thing, remember, one of the most powerful way of learning is learning through mistakes. So when you will make those mistakes in those 2 minutes, and then you will see when I'll discuss the answer of that question, you'll see, अच्छा ये मेरे से कैसे miss हो गया. Those are the kind of things you'll never forget in your life. So because of that also, those 2 minutes are very, very crucial. Now, many of the students will do what? Because there is PYQs, they will go home and they will write the PYQs. Okay? But for me, this is a wrong approach. The purpose of giving these PYQs is not so that you go home and write them. The purpose of these PYQs is that so that you see the PYQs and feel confident that now you are in a position to ultimately solve all the PYQs. That is the entire purpose of why I am giving those PYQs there, to boost your confidence, not so that you go home and practice the PYQs. एक बात समझ लो, PYQs के basis पर ही पूरा 500 plus based है. It goes even beyond PYQs from the perspective of today. So no need to do that. अगर कोई odd one out question लिख रहा है, उसको लिखना चाहते हो तो ठीक है. Otherwise there is no need. अगर मुझे practice करना है, which questions I will prefer to actually write? At home, I'll try to write the session questions. Answer writing, when you are doing at home, it has to be done without looking into the content. Once you have revised it, you feel confident, now you will be able to write an answer on this. Then without looking into the content, you try to write that answer within the stipulated limit. And the stipulated limit is very clear. For 10 marker, it is 6 minutes. For if you talk about 15 markers, it is 10 to 11 minutes. And for 20 markers, it is 15 minutes. ठीक है? That is what you have to do. So मुझे अगर practice करना है तो मैं इसको करूँगा ना. क्यों ऐसा होता है कि उसी में से हर साल इतने सारे question आ रहे हैं, but still students are unable to get good marks. Why? While others are getting good marks, because they didn't revise it properly. ये जो कंटेंटोफोबिया जो अभी स्टूडेंट्स में है, you have to get rid of this. Quantity is not equal to quality. You have to understand this point. हमें क्वालिटेटिव प्रिपरेशन करनी है. पहले भी मैंने बोला है कि मेमोराइजेशन इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू द अमाउंट ऑफ कंटेंट. So the more content you'll try to read, the more content you'll try to assimilate, less memorization will be there, less retention will be there. So fix करते हैं कि हम इतना ही पढ़ेंगे. एक बार लाइफ में रिस्क लेकर के देखो. मेरे कहने पे जिन बच्चों ने रिस्क लिया है, they have actually reaped the reward of this. ठीक है? So there should be no confusion of what the PYQs are meant to be. You will see by the time we have discussed this, these will look kiddish to you कि ये बच्चों वाले questions थे. ठीक है? So that is the only purpose of the PYQs. Then, so as I told you, we'll be doing this question by question. If you have any kind of problem regarding preparation, ठीक है? You don't have to be, एक वो होता है ना कि नई नवेली दुल्हन बहुत शर्माती है, ठीक है? वैसा नहीं होना है. You have to come straight to me and tell your problem that I have this problem. I essentially do not have content, or I do not understand this concept. How to write answer? I am facing problem in answer writing. ठीक है? So again, that is essentially what you have to do. You can understand that I am not a magician. I cannot understand, I cannot know that what is going on in your mind. You will have to come and be open and tell me. And those of you who have been here, you see that I am every day available here, almost every day. एक आध दो दिन मुझे छुट्टी लेनी पड़ी है बीच में because of copy checking just. Otherwise I was available almost every day except Sundays. अब Sunday को भी रहूँगा because there is 500 plus. ठीक है? So that is all about the 500 plus that I have to tell you. Some of you have concerns, like many students called me और मैसेज me कि सर फीस ज़्यादा है, फीस ही हमेशा से 500 फीस ऐसे ही रहता है, ठीक है, उसमें कोई बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है। और एक और बात समझ लो, और मैं बहुत ही ऑनेस्टली और डिलीजेंटली मैं तुम लोगों को ये बात समझाना चाहता हूँ। So many of the students are doing what? You people are calculating only one cost, ठीक है, and what is that? This cost is you are calculating the fees that you have paid, ठीक है. Remember, it is not the only cost that you are paying. There is something referred to as, बाद में भी पढ़ेंगे, what you call it as opportunity cost. If you are a graduate and you are not sitting here, I believe बेकार से बेकार हालत में 25,000 रुपए तो कमा लोगे, इतना तो हो जाएगा, ठीक है. इतना मेरे घर में नैना कमा लेती है, 25,000 रुपए you'll get. That means 3 lakh in a year. You calculate this. So it is not the only the fees. You are also paying 3 lakh in a year. You are sacrificing that plus your cost, other type of various type of costs which are involved. You'll find that actually you are paying very hefty sums. And just because of fees, if you go somewhere and वहाँ पे fees कम है और you think etc etc, it is not the right approach. You try to understand this point. कोई भी अच्छी चीज होती है उसका कॉस्ट होता है, ये नेचर का रूल है. इवन if a seed has to become a tree, it has to destroy itself. There is in real nature there is always give and take. There is nothing such philanthropy. ये सब humans का बनाए हुए फंड है. So I know it may be little bit costly, ठीक है, ओके. सो अब स्टार्ट करते हैं. आई थिंक किसी को कुछ पूछना है तो पूछ सकते हो अभी. आई एम विलिंग टू आंसर बिफोर आई स्टार्ट. पहले क्लास में कम क्वेश्चंस होते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ भाषणबाजी, उसके बाद सब ट्रैक पर आ जाता है. ओके, सो लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड सम ऑफ द टॉपिक्स दैट वी आर गोइंग टू डू. आज के 2 टॉपिक्स लिए थे मैंने, concepts of over under and optimum population, Malthusian Marxian and demographic transition models. Now these are the theoretical parts of population geography, so little bit it will be taking more time. There are many things you understand, there are many things you do not understand. On the basis of that, I have framed some of the questions. Some of the questions are there to just make sure that you have that basic content also with you. Questions will be mix and match, where you are able to revise, test yourself also of what things you have already prepared. ठीक है, I will make sure that when we are talking about the topics, उन topics के बारे में एक broad overview दे दूं and then we deal with the questions of those. ठीक है. So if you talk about first one, the concept of over and under and optimum population. What is this idea basically? What is over, under and optimum population? सोचो यार, बताओ. Available resources, okay. We can simply say, और देखो, one more thing, you have to now start writing. Whatever will be coming out of my mouth, it is like gospel. उसको उसी तरह से treat करना. You have to be very fast writing also. अपने notes यही final notes होंगे, इसी को अच्छे से revise करेंगे. So first most important thing is originally how these concepts were formulated. They talked about the relationship between economics and demography. ठीक है. So these concepts we are talking about the over, under and optimum population. In this, one of the most sorted one is what? It is the idea of optimum population. So optimum population was given by Cannon in 1924 in his book Wealth. लिखा हुआ है material में. So this idea was given by Cannon in 1924 in his book Wealth. Very important thing that these concepts, if you talk about, they tell us about the relationship that exists between demography and economics. Demography and economics. ठीक है? If we talk about here demography, we are measuring through what? Understanding through population size. ठीक है? And economics, we are talking about the resources. So most important thing about these concepts is that what they are doing, they are measuring this kind of relationship. They are measuring standard of living. ठीक है? They are measures of what? They are measures of standard of living. So here they are measures of standard of living. ठीक है? Again, you can understand that there is two variables, population and there is resource, and on the basis of that we can calculate its per capita. ठीक है? What is the per capita resource availability, or in simple word, standards of living. ठीक है? Now, if the per capita resource availability is high, ठीक है, we call this condition as a condition of optimum population. Can I say it is also a dream of every country that per capita availability should be high? ठीक है? So when this per capita availability is high, this is what we call it as the optimum population situation. If it is low, high का मतलब क्या है? Can I say nature में most efficiency कब होती है? जब systems are in equilibrium. ठीक है? So when it will be highest, when there is an equilibrium. ठीक है? Between the population size and the resources. So here if you talk about, this is high because there is what? Equilibrium. That means balance. On the other hand, can you understand, if it is low, there is basically what? Disequilibrium. So there is disequilibrium. ठीक है? यानी कि इधर या तो पॉपुलेशन ज़्यादा है या फिर रिसोर्सेज ज़्यादा हैं. So there is some kind of disequilibrium there. डिसइक्विलिब्रियम के केस में हमेशा स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग क्या हो जाएगा? लो हो जाएगा. ठीक है? ऑब्वियसली दिस कैन बी ऑफ this equilibrium can be in two situations, where one case where population size is what? Greater than the resource availability. What we call this situation as condition of overpopulation. ठीक है? So this is what we call it as the condition of overpopulation. On the other hand, there can be an opposite scenario where population size is less than the resources available. We call this situation as underpopulation. Underpopulation. ठीक है? अगर किसी एरिया में, ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस पॉइंट, फर्स्ट लेवल पर, यानी कि मुझे अगर किसी एरिया में, अगर मैं तुमसे बोलूं कि इंडिया के रीजन्स को क्लासिफाई करो इनटू ओवर, अंडर एंड ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन, फर्स्ट क्राइटेरिया विच आई विल बी यूजिंग इज व्हाट? द पर कैपिटा इनकम. Those who will have high per capita income can be called as optimum ठीक है, there is better equilibrium there. Those who do not have will be either overpopulated or underpopulated. Now, how I will identify whether it is overpopulation or underpopulation? I will use a secondary criteria, and this secondary criteria will be of population density. ठीक है, so here can you understand ओवर पॉपुलेशन है तो क्या मुझे यहाँ पे हाई पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी मिलनी चाहिए, ठीक है, so this will be characterized by a higher population density, this one will be characterized by lower population density, ठीक है, so I can very clearly identify that whether it is overpopulated or underpopulated. So suppose if I ask you which states of India you will classify as overpopulated, yes, those which are located in the northern plains, particularly UP and Bihar and West Bengal maybe. Can I say majority of India will be underpopulated classified? Whether if you talk about the Himalayan region, whether if you talk about Rajasthan, whether you talk about Madhya Pradesh, entire northeast, okay, majority of these areas will be classified as what? Underpopulated. There the population density is actually lower. ठीक है, there are large stretches of areas which are uninhabited or there hardly any people are living. So they will be classified as what? Underpopulated. Optimum populated states हैं इंडिया में. Some we can say like Punjab, high per capita income it has, Haryana, Maharashtra, Gujarat बहुत मतलब ठीक है, perception is different, but if you are aware, Gujarat's per capita income is in the middle category states, not it is not among the high category states, ठीक है. So if you talk about ठीक है, Gujarat भी to some extent, but not actually, it is not classified. Others, if you talk about Tamil Nadu can be called as one such state where there is higher per capita income. So again, I can say that they are more a kind of optimum populated states or more near. They are not optimum populated, more nearer to that situation, because reality will be that there will be what? There will be a kind of continuum of what is overpopulated, underpopulated and optimum populated. So you can understand that here is the standard of living and here is what? Here is the population. So there will be a point O where can you see that standard of living is becoming maximum? So that point O is what? It is that case of optimum population. So हम कह सकते हैं कि थोड़ा इधर, this is basically what? This is the case of optimum population. Beyond this, this is what? This is underpopulated, and beyond this there is the overpopulated. ठीक है, आई होप इट इज क्लियर. अब एक चीज यू हैव टू प्रॉमिस मी हियर कि कल जब हम क्लास में आएंगे और मैं किसी को भी यहाँ से पूछूं खड़ा करके, टेल मी द डेफिनेशन ऑफ ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन और ओवर पॉपुलेशन, यू विल बी कॉन्फिडेंट इनफ टू टेल. ठीक है, ये बिल्कुल रट्टे होने चाहिए, ये बेसिक डेफिनेशन है. तुम सोचो कि एक टीचर को कैसा फील होता होगा कि तुम आंसर लिख रहे हो ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन पे और तुमको ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन की डेफिनेशन तक नहीं पता है. It gives a very bad impression, and that impression is carried throughout when he's checking your or evaluating your copy. So this is the basic idea. So simple सी बात है, optimum population क्या है? It is, as I told you, I have given little bit in the material about these. So again, Edwin Cannon in 1924 a book named Wealth. Others like Cantillon, Saunders, Dalton, Robbins, all of them have popularized the idea of optimum population. So what is optimum population? It is achieved when the labor force makes best use of available resources, leading to highest possible standard of living. अब ये keywords हैं. अगर आपने अपनी डेफिनेशन में ये कीवर्ड्स नहीं लिखे, मैं मार्क्स नहीं दूंगा, बिकॉज दिस इज आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग. ठीक है, थिंक अबाउट, यू आर राइटिंग अबाउट द concepts of over, under and optimum population, and you do not mention at all standard of living. How do you expect that I will think that you know about the concept? So that is what is the definition of optimum population. It is influenced by several factors like resources, technology, capital, social conditions. ठीक है, so variety of factors are affecting. You can understand. यहाँ पर एक चीज और समझ लेते हैं, हम यहाँ पे किसकी बात कर रहे हैं? रिसोर्सेस की बात कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. So when we'll study economic geography, we will see that resources, there are two ways of looking at the resources. One is the traditional way or the Malthusian way of looking at the resource, where resources are believed to be what? They are believed to be given. ठीक है, resources nature हमें देता है. They are treated as endowments of nature. So if they are endowments of nature, that means resources are given. But there is a second view, the technocentric view. The technocentric view says that resources are not given, they are human made. Humans create resources by development of technology. ठीक है, by development of technology. So this means that there are two views with respect to resources. One is we call it as static view of resources, and the second one is what we call it as the dynamic view of resources. I hope it is clear. ठीक है, so again that is why it depends upon not only resource is function of what? Technology. ठीक है, again other factors like capital and social conditions are all related factors to that. ठीक है, so varies with such factors such as state size, resource, technology, transport and social structure. And near optimum population, UK, Belgium, France, West Germany, so many are there. This is what we mean by optimum population. What is overpopulation? In simple terms, it is occurring when population exceeds available resources. ठीक है, when it is exceeding available resources. और simple, अगर हम एक और चीज के बारे में बोलना चाहें, what is overpopulation? It is a situation when the resource development is unable to keep pace with population growth. लिखना चाहते हो तो लिख सकते हो, when resource development is unable to keep pace, is unable to keep pace with population growth, with population growth. ठीक है, so this is simple idea of overpopulation. अगर कहीं पर overpopulation है, can I say there will be many things which we can see, which will be able to see, like for example, will there be lots of unemployment? Yes or no? In such an area, will there be unemployment, underemployment? Will there be poverty? Will there be problems like hunger, malnutrition, even famines? ठीक है, so again these are what? These are the symptoms of overpopulation. They tell us that this area may have overpopulation. That means they tell us that there is what? Disequilibrium. ठीक है, these are actually the symptoms of disequilibrium to exist. I hope it is clear. So this is what we mean by the concept of overpopulation. And the third one, underpopulation. Underpopulation is simple, occurs when there are too few people to fully utilize the available resources. ठीक है, इसका एक टेक्निकल डेफिनेशन है, लिख लेते हैं उसको. It is a situation where addition of population does not results in decline in standard of living. Decline in standards of living. ठीक है, यानी कि suppose there is suppose a particular standard of living, even if I add people in that area, standard of living will not decline because there is enough resource. In fact, these extra people will help to exploit those resources. There is greater possibility that the standard of living of the entire population will increase, but it will not decrease. So when this kind of situation exists, what we call it as? We call it as underpopulation. I hope it is clear. ठीक है, तो ये कंसेप्ट्स हैं, ये इनकी डेफिनेशंस हैं, बिल्कुल रटी होनी चाहिए. देन वन मोर थिंग, यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट दीज सिचुएशंस आर relative more rather than absolute. So there are two concepts related with this. When we are talking about population resource ratio, we are saying that they are hardly absolute. They are, in most of the cases, they are relative. They are relative. Okay. So think about this. Can there be absolute situations like absolute overpopulation? हो सकता है? टेल मी. माल्थस से पूछोगे तो कहेगा हाँ हो सकता है. If you ask them neo-Malthusian, they'll say yes, possible. And we'll see in Malthusian concept, this problem of overpopulation is what it is, absolute type. There's so many, if you talk about problems which are existing, and it is result of what? It is result of there is actually shortage of resources taking place with when compared with population. So in Malthusian concept, the concept of overpopulation is what? It is absolute. ठीक है, बट हम बाकियों में देखेंगे, they say that it is not absolute, it is essentially what? It is relative concept. Like for example, for Marx, the problem is not of availability of resources, it is about what? Distribution of resources. There is no fair distribution of resources, and because of that, there is part of population or majority of the population becomes poor and overpopulated. Okay. If you talk about the technocentric, so technocentric view will believe what? That the problem is not of population size, it is lack of technological development. Okay. So I hope you understand. When we are talking about absolute, we are focusing upon what? We are focusing upon population size number is the focus. Okay. Population size number is the focus. But when we are talking about this one, we are talking about from the perspective of distribution and technological development. Distribution and the technological development. It is very simple thing to understand that when you are talking about, ठीक है, अभी इसको मैं दूसरे तरीके से समझाता हूँ. So ये थोड़ा समझ में आ गया, what is the idea of absolute and what is the idea of relative. ठीक है, अब इसमें एक और बात समझ लेते हैं. Whenever we talk about population and resource, this is the first law that we will be talking about, first principle, and that is what it is explained by the equation I is equal to PAT. It is explained by the equation I is equal to PAT. So what is I here? I is environmental impact. I is the environmental impact. P is equal to the population size. A, if you talk about, is affluence, and T, if you talk about, is the technology. I hope it is clear. So I is equal to PAT. So when we are talking about the relationship between population and resource, it is not direct. It is intervened by the factor of affluence and technology. Affluence क्या है? It simply, in simple terms, it is consumption rate. ठीक है? It is rate of consumption. And tell me, can I say it is function of culture? It is essentially function of culture. So, for example, if it is capitalist culture, can I say there will be commodification, there will be use and throw, and there will be higher consumption rate? If it is some other type of political economic system or political economic culture, what will happen there? It may be different. If you go in rural India, can I say people still have habit of preserving things, recycling things? Okay. So there is, in that case, there is less use and throw, and thus what will be taking place? There will be less consumption rate per capita. You might be aware, abhi recent ki report, that what is the ecological footprint of humanity today? It is 1.8. We are consuming 1.8 of the every year available resources. Okay. And why it has become so much? Because of PAT. एक फैक्टर पॉपुलेशन साइज है, नो डाउट अबाउट दैट, बट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर इज व्हाट, हमारा रेट ऑफ कंजम्पशन बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया. ठीक है, अभी देखते हैं इसको. सो टेक्नोलॉजी यू वेरी वेल अंडरस्टैंड. अब जब मैं इसको जीएस में भी यूज़ कर सकता हूँ, दिस इज समथिंग विच कैन बी यूज इन जीएस एज वेल. जब मैं ऑप्शनल में इसको यूज़ कर रहा हूँ, माई वे ऑफ थिंकिंग विल डिफर. व्हेन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट पी, द पर्सन हु is more talking about absolute relationships, it is none other than Malthus. Malthus. So when I'm thinking about P population, I'll think about Malthus. When I'm thinking about affluence, it is essentially, this is an idea which is based upon the Marx idea of distribution. Then technology, if you talk about, we call such viewpoint as technocentric, or also referred to as cornucopian. Cornucopian. कॉर्नुकोपियन. आई होप इट इज क्लियर. तो ये तीन चीजें हम यूज कर सकते हैं. माल्थस सबको पता है क्लियरली, माल्थस क्या बोलता है? कैन वी से दैट दिस इज द माल्थुसियन व्यू? हियर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट टाइम, हियर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द ग्रोथ. सो very clearly Malthus says that this is the resource growth, or what Malthus has in his theory written as subsistence. ठीक है. On the other hand, population grows as a result of J curve. ठीक है. It is explosive growth of population is seen because पढ़ा है अगर Malthus, मैंने तुम लोगों को बोला था कि पढ़ना models and theories. So for him, population is growing with which rate? Geometric progression. ठीक है. So again, what is happening because of that? Because it is crossing the resource level, so it will become stabilized or even decline. ठीक है. There can be even decline. So there is formation of that famous S curve. Population में, it is all of these theories we will see. What they are trying to do, they are trying to explain the S curve. So again, this is what is happening. This is what Malthus is talking about. Okay. In fact, this is what famously here occurs the checks or the Malthusian checks on population. ठीक है. So this is the Malthusian idea. इसमें किसी को कोई डाउट है? You must be aware Malthus was a person who didn't have much faith in technology. So for him the resources are given. He took which view of resources? The static view of the resources. ठीक है. So this is the case. On the other hand, if you talk about the technocentric, ठीक है, technocentric believe that it is not like this. like the idea of Bosroop. He says that population may grow like whatever it wants. Ultimately, when there is population pressure, what will happen? Tell me, can we say that necessity is the mother of all invention? So, when people will feel necessity, they will invent new technologies. And resources, as we said, are technology dependent. Okay? So, what will happen? The growth of resources is like this. It is not the way Malthus has assumed. And if we look at the history, can we say history also supports us? We find that, can I call it as the first agricultural revolution? It led to significant jump in the food availability. Then there was the industrial revolution. With the industrial revolution, mechanization and several things came which further led to increase in productivity. Then can we say that there was the green revolution, first green revolution? Tell me, are we today talking about a second green revolution or the biotechnology revolution? Okay, so this is the diagram which was given by Bosroop, famous cornucopian. ठीक है. So can you understand? उनके हिसाब से ये सारी प्रॉब्लम क्या है? According to technocentric scholars, what is this problem? This problem is not of population size. The problem is of technology. ठीक है. और what they believe? They believe that certain type of political economic systems, they automatically promote innovation. ठीक है. What type of political economic system promotes innovation? For them it is capitalism. ठीक है. So क्या वो कहते हैं? Capitalism automatically promotes innovation. How capitalism automatically promotes innovation? So we are saying that cornucopians, they believe that capitalism automatically promotes innovation. How it promotes innovation? Because in capitalism there are certain inbuilt features. Okay, it has certain inbuilt features. Inbuilt features. What is one inbuilt feature? One inbuilt feature is market mechanism. In capitalism, there is everything is decided by the market. So tell me, if there is everything is decided by the market forces, if there is increase in the price of a commodity, does it tells me that is a mismatch between demand and supply? And does it tells me that there is need for innovation? Okay. So the market mechanism, what it does, it automatically informs the innovator. Okay. So what it does, it automatically informs the innovators through prices or through price fluctuations. Through the price fluctuations, innovators को सीधे पता चल जाता है कि here there is need for innovation. ठीक है. Second thing, it has inbuilt rewards for innovations. Inbuilt rewards for innovation. For example, one inbuilt reward you must be aware is patent mechanism. If you can patent some product, can I say I can earn monopoly profits over it? ठीक है? So it has inbuilt mechanisms. I hope it is clear. So this is the idea which has been given by cornucopian. This is the basic understanding of what they are trying to say. इसी का एक variant diagram. This was the Bose-Roop diagram. Another cornucopian has given this diagram, and this is so this is your population growth taking place. So जहाँ पर can you see resource scarcity arising, there is ultimately innovations taking place. So this diagram is given by Simon. He is another very famous technocentric scholar. I hope it is clear. ठीक है? तो ये दूसरा important view है. Third important view is of who? It is of Marx, the Marxist scholars. Affluence. Broadly इस view को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Because Marx is just one type of such view. Broadly this view is the political economy view. ठीक है? जो हमने अपना second factor की बात की, what was that? It was the factor of affluence. ठीक है? So when I am talking about the factor of affluence, affluence as a factor, it is explained by the political economy view. Political economy view. ठीक है? तो ये जो political economy view वाले scholars हैं, some of them they proudly call themselves as Marxist. ठीक है? But there are others who believe that Marxism limits your thinking, and thus they prefer to call themselves by other names like realist or structuralist. ठीक है? So this is more of a Marxist, and if you talk about, there are structuralists, Marxist and structuralist. अगर मुझे एक structuralist का नाम लेना है, so Amartya Sen for example is what? He is a structuralist. Marxist very famous is David Harvey. Geography में अगर हम देखें तो it is Harvey who is very famous Marxist. ठीक है? I hope it is clear. So this is the political economic view. और political economic view simple सी बात बोलता है कि कौन सी situation होगी, whether if you talk about it will be overpopulation, underpopulation or optimum population, it depends upon the type of political economic system which is present. So this means that if it is capitalism, it can have its own type of situations. Capitalism के भी कई variants होते हैं. ठीक है? Like for example in Scandinavian type of capitalism we find that there is very high standards of living, but there can be capitalism which is prevalent in case of India, where capitalists rather than innovating, can you see most of our biggest capitalists are not actually innovators which they were meant to be. They are basically what? बीच के दलाल बने हुए. ठीक है? They are middlemen basically. They are just earning profits because of their network systems. So if you talk about, that is the basic idea of the political economic view. Marxists and ये दोनों एग्री करते हैं एक बात पर कि these problems of population, these are result of what? They are result of unequal distribution of resources. Both of them agree on one thing, they are result of unequal distribution of resources. There is unequal distribution of resources. How they are different? इसमें और इसमें क्या डिफरेंस होगा? ये अनइक्वालिटी केवल एक सिस्टम में बात करता है, वो कौन सा सिस्टम है? कैपिटलिज्म. इट इज अ क्रिटिक ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म. ठीक है. सो इट एक्सप्लेन्स अनइक्वालिटी ओनली फॉर कैपिटलिज्म, while these they explain inequality everywhere. ठीक है. They are explaining inequality everywhere. Like for example, you might be, हम बाद में पढ़ेंगे अमर्त्य सेन का entitlement theory. When you take entitlements of people away, what will happen? They will become poor. Poverty will be outcome of that. ठीक है. So people can have several type of entitlements. Like it can be related with land or other kind of resources, jobs, etc. When you take them away, what will happen? They will ultimately, many systems will collapse. ठीक है. So they are not limiting, these structuralists are not limiting themselves to any specific type of political economic system. They try to find the flaws of unequal distribution in all type of systems. So they have given certain concepts which are applicable to all type of systems. ठीक है. So this is what is the political economy view of resources. This is what we mean by affluence. So affluence का मतलब क्या है? हमारा कंजम्पशन रेट. एक बात बहुत क्लियर है कि मार्क्सिस्ट अपनी जगह पे सही है कहीं ना कहीं. कैपिटलिज्म जो आज का, कैन वी से कैपिटलिज्म हैज बिकम मेन स्ट्रीम टुडे. अर्लियर इट वाज रीजनल इन नेचर. टुडे इज इट ग्लोबल? इट इज डेफिनेटली ग्लोबल. एंड हाउ यू आर मेजरिंग डेवलपमेंट इन कैपिटलिज्म? कैसे मेजर करते हैं? कैन आई से इट इज जीडीपी पर कैपिटा इनकम? व्हाट इज जीडीपी? In many ways it can be counted, three ways it can be counted. You would have studied in economics. One way is, it is the amount of consumption done in a financial year. Yes or no? That is the GDP. Now amount of consumption measure कर रहा है. Can I say better should have been amount of balanced consumption or necessary consumption? वो तो measure कर ही नहीं रहा. यानी कि अगर मैं अपना कंजम्पशन बढ़ाता रहूं तो जीडीपी बढ़ता रहेगा, पर कैपिटा इनकम बढ़ता रहेगा. मुझे एक गाड़ी की जरूरत है, एक कार की जरूरत है, बट मैं 6 खरीद लाऊं, उसमें से यूज मैं एक ही कर रहा हूं. बट अगर मैंने एक से ज्यादा खरीद ली तो क्या कंजम्पशन बढ़ गया? और कंजम्पशन बढ़ा तो जीडीपी बढ़ी, पर कैपिटा इनकम बढ़ा. आर यू गेटिंग माई पॉइंट? सो इट is a type of system which is rewarding consumption, and consumption can sometimes become what? It can become unmindful, it can become unsustainable. ठीक है. It promotes unsustainable consumption. Because of that consumption some people become very rich. ठीक है. Because production is controlled in capitalism by handful of capitalists who earn the major parts of the profits. ठीक है. यानी कि बाकी लोग जितना कंजम्पशन करेंगे उससे किसको फायदा होगा? कैपिटलिस्ट को फायदा होगा, विच आर हैंडफुल ऑफ देम. सो अगेन दिस इज व्हाट मार्क्सिज्म ट्राइज टू से, दैट इन सच सिस्टम्स द सिस्टम इज बिल्ट इन सच अ मैनर दैट इट इंक्रीजेस कंजम्पशन रेट, एफ्लुएंस रेट्स. ठीक है. एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट द प्रॉब्लम इज अकरिंग, बिकॉज देयर आर सर्टेन पीपल who are consuming more than their fair share of the resources. ठीक है. And that is creating the problem. Oxfam की रिपोर्ट क्या कहती है? If you talk about 1% of the elite population has 45% of the wealth of the world. ठीक है. Can you understand? So much inequality, so much unequal distribution of the resource. So this is the basic idea which has been given by them. I hope it is clear. So this is how I understand the concept of over, under and optimum population. समझ में आ गई बात? अब एक बार एक एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन आ गया, आई थिंक इट वाज इन environmental geography, so maybe because of that it is not given there. एक क्वेश्चन आया कि controlling the size of population leads to sustainable development. Comment. Can you understand? Many times the questions will not directly tell you कि भैया ये लिखना है. Majority of the time you will have to decode what is the essence, what is the meaning. So can I say कि जैसे ही मेरे को दिखाई पड़ता है population, मेरी घंटी बजती है और घंटी बजते ही सबसे पहले मुझे एक इक्वेशन सामने घूमने लगती है, आई इज इक्वल टू पैट, आई इज इक्वल टू पैट, बिकॉज द क्वेश्चन वॉज आस्किंग कमेंट. डज इट मीन्स दैट आई हैव टू राइट ऑल्सो द अदर एस्पेक्ट, द अगेंस्ट व्यू? सो आई विल एग्री दैट पॉपुलेशन साइज कंट्रोल करने से क्या होगा, इट कैन लीड टू सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट, बट इट इज नॉट अलोन सफिशिएंट to lead to sustainable development. Sustainable development is also dependent upon we managing our rates of consumption, affluence levels. It is also dependent upon development of environment friendly technologies. ठीक है? Can you understand कि मेरे से ही पढ़े हुए स्टूडेंट्स गए उस एग्जाम में और वो एक वन डायमेंशनल आंसर लिख करके चले आए? इट इज अ क्राइम. यू हैव टू रिमेंबर दीज कंसेप्ट्स द वे आई रिमेंबर, कि बिल्कुल रटा हुआ है. जहां पे आया कोई क्वेश्चन फटाफट मैं लिंक कर लेता हूं कि विथ विच कंसेप्ट इट इज रिलेटेड विथ. ठीक है? आई होप इट इज क्लियर. ठीक है, नाउ लेट अस स्टार्ट आवर डिस्कशन ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस. आई नो दैट दिस इज मे बी स्टिल नॉट अपलोडेड, बट उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, सेशन के बाद मिल जाएगा तुम लोगों को. इट विल बी ऑल्सो विल पुट इन द यूट्यूब डिस्क्रिप्शन, जो लोग ऑनलाइन देख रहे हैं उनको भी मिल जाएगा, नो प्रॉब्लम इन दैट. आई विल बी गिविंग दिस ऑनलाइन ओनली बिकॉज आई वेरी डायनेमिक इट इज. मैं रात में बैठ करके बनाता हूँ और फिर वो प्रिंट करना प्रॉब्लम है उसमें. ठीक है? सो पहला क्वेश्चन देखते हैं. अ रीजन मे बी इकोनॉमिकली अंडर पॉपुलेटेड but ecologically overpopulated. Explain with suitable examples. 10 marker, and your time, if you talk about, of brainstorming starts now. Yes, Udit, we can say that they are possibilist. Okay. एनीवन वुड लाइक टू शेयर अगर ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग की हो? ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग हम कैसे करते हैं? विल टेक अ पेज, विल थिंक ऑन what is the question. First, what will happen? First 1 minute, randomly the ideas will flow. Okay, and whatever is coming, you first write it. Random वो idea आएगा. And उसके बाद next 1 minute you organize it. कि what could have been introduction, what could have been written in the main body, and what could have been written in the conclusion. That is how the brainstorming works. जब भी हम अपने माइंड को कोई टास्क देंगे वो हमें बेवकूफ बनाता है, वो रैंडम सोचता है. ठीक है, माइंड डजंट वर्क्स, द थिंकिंग डजंट वर्क्स इन सीक्वेंशियल मैनर और सिस्टमैटिक मैनर. सो फर्स्ट 1 minute ऑफ ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग यू हैव टू स्पेंड थिंकिंग रैंडमली, एंड देन व्हाट यू विल डू, यू विल थिंक कि अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिख सकता था, मेन बॉडी में क्या क्या पार्ट्स होने चाहिए थे, एंड finally what could have been the theme of conclusion. I hope it is clear. अब इस क्वेश्चन को देखूं तो I just forgot to tell you one thing. This is, I have given the Ackermann's population resource region. He is an example of cornucopian thinker. He takes 3 factors into account: population factor, resource factor and technology factor. But he gives greater importance to technology. And if you talk about how, इस एक चार्ट बना हुआ है उसमें देख सकते हो यूएस टाइप में क्या मिल रहा है, रिसोर्सेज हाई हैं, पॉपुलेशन ऑप्टिमम है, टेक्नोलॉजी हाई है, तो इसलिए पॉपुलेशन कैसा हो जा रहा है, ऑप्टिमम हो जा रहा है. ठीक है, बट यूरोपियन टाइप में रिसोर्स का लेवल क्या है, लोअर है, पॉपुलेशन कैसी है, हाई है, टेक्नोलॉजी हावेवर हाई है, इसलिए यहां पर भी हमें क्या मिल रहा है, ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन. बोथ ऑफ देम हैव हाई स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑफ लिविंग. रिमेंबर हाउ वी मेजर थिंग्स. ठीक है, so he gives more importance to technology. Coming to our question, so a region may be economically underpopulated but ecologically overpopulated. Explain with suitable examples. This is the basic the question is asking. It is a 10 marker. Keyword here is what? It is explain. ठीक है, एक चीज और लर्न कर लेते हैं कि हर टाइप ऑफ कीवर्ड का अपना वे ऑफ राइटिंग होता है. ठीक है, सो जब भी मैं क्वेश्चन को पढ़ूंगा, व्हाट आई विल डू, आई विल हैव अ हैबिट ऑफ आइडेंटिफाइंग द कीवर्ड्स. देयर आर 2 टाइप ऑफ कीवर्ड्स इन अ क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, वन इज व्हाट वी कॉल इट एज प्राइमरी कीवर्ड. लाइक हियर द प्राइमरी कीवर्ड इज economic underpopulated but ecologically overpopulated. ठीक है, so economically underpopulated and ecologically overpopulated. So इसका मतलब है, I'll just explain you here. Those are my primary keywords. What is the role of primary keyword? It gives me the headings of paragraphs या फिर points बोल लो, whatever. It gives me what? The headings of the paragraphs or the points which are to be written. ठीक है, इस आंसर में क्या मैं कह सकता हूं कि मुझे एक लिखना चाहिए, what is economically underpopulated? Yes or no? दूसरा क्या मुझे लिखना चाहिए, इकोलॉजिकल ओवर पॉपुलेटेड क्या होता है, और क्या तीसरा पॉइंट मैं लिखूंगा, वाई दिस इज बिकॉज इट इज अ पैराडॉक्स. एक ही रीजन अंडर पॉपुलेटेड भी हो रहा है और ओवर पॉपुलेटेड भी हो रहा है. सो शुड आई ऑल्सो बी एक्सप्लेनिंग द पैराडॉक्स, वाई दैट पैराडॉक्स इज देयर. सो क्या मेन बॉडी में मेरे 3 पॉइंट्स बनेंगे, 3 मेन पैराग्राफ्स बनेंगे ऑन विच आई विल राइट द आंसर, ठीक है. सो व्हाट इज द प्राइमरी कीवर्ड टास्क? इट विल गिव मी द हेडिंग्स ऑफ द कीवर्ड, हेडिंग्स ऑफ द पैराग्राफ्स, ठीक है. Second type of keyword is secondary keyword, like here it is explain, ठीक है. Here it is the explain. So there is secondary keyword, and what does the secondary keyword does? Secondary keyword tells me how to write within the paragraphs, ठीक है. It tells me how to write within the paragraph, ठीक है. Like for example यहां पर है explain. Can I say if it is explain, I don't need to write the criticism, because it is not asking me to write criticism or the opposite view. Are you getting my point? So depending upon what the secondary keyword is asking, अगर वो होता what, describe, तो can I say I don't need to write even explanations, ठीक है. So depending upon the secondary keyword, what I will do, I will write the way it is asking within those paragraphs, and each of these secondary keywords can be classified into certain classes. So there is a class 1 keyword. Here there is one thing explicit. What is explicit aspect here? The explicit is the what element. What is the explicit part, ठीक है. तो इसमें मुझे बिल्कुल भी क्या करना है, समझाना नहीं है. I don't have to explain. I have to just give the information, put the information. It can be asked in many ways, like for example several ways, like describe, list down, etc. So many such type of keywords are there, ठीक है. या फिर एक और बहुत commonly यूज जो होता है, highlight, highlight. So when I have to highlight, I don't need to explain, ठीक है. सीधा वो लिख दिया. Like for example एक टेस्ट में क्वेश्चन पूछा, एग्जाम में PYQ में आया था, हाईलाइट द मेजर बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स ऑफ इंडिया, ठीक है. या फिर बायो, अभी मैंने एक टेस्ट में पूछा हाईलाइट द मेजर, और आइडेंटिफाई, एक और वर्ड है, हाँ मैंने जो पूछा था वो था आइडेंटिफाई. सो आइडेंटिफाई द बायोटिक रिसोर्स रीजन्स ऑफ इंडिया. अब मुझे जब आइडेंटिफाई करना है, कैन आई से कि मैं मैप में बना करके दिखा दूं तो हो गया आइडेंटिफाई. I don't even need to write about them, ठीक है. So this is explicitly asking you what, ठीक है. रिकॉग्निशन करना बहुत जरूरी है. Then there is class 2 keywords. In the class 2 keyword there is something which is explicit, and here the why is explicit, ठीक है. वाई पार्ट इज एक्सप्लिसिट. लेकिन अगर वाई एक्सप्लिसिट है तो टेल मी, क्या उसके साथ एक और चीज होगी, इम्प्लिसिट भी होगा, व्हाट. अगर मैं वाई बता रहा हूं तो ये तो बताऊंगा ना किसका वाई. सो आई लिटिल बिट ऑल्सो आई हैव टू टेल व्हाट इट इज. सो इट इज इम्प्लिसिटली गिवन इन दैट, ठीक है. इसका मतलब अगर मुझे क्लास 2 कीवर्ड लिखना होगा तो क्या मेरा डिफिकल्टी लेवल बढ़ गया? और अगर डिफिकल्टी लेवल बढ़ गया तो डज इट मीन्स दैट द रिवॉर्ड्स शुड ऑल्सो इंक्रीज? सो अगर एक क्वेश्चन में दोनों पार्ट हैं, सपोज मेरे को 3 पेजेस मिले लिखने के लिए. फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग व्हाट, सेकेंड पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग व्हाई. कैन आई से आई विल गिव 1 पेज टू फर्स्ट पार्ट एंड 2 पेजेस टू द सेकेंड पार्ट? आर यू गेटिंग माई पॉइंट? दैट इज हाउ द स्पेस डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन शुड बी देयर, ठीक है. So that is there. And you know, many ways this is asked, like explain, very commonly illustrate, elucidate. Elucidate, illustrate क्या होते हैं? They are explain with examples. ठीक है? Illustrate is explain with diagrams. So if you talk about elucidate, या फिर another you would have seen commonly is reasoned account. Reasoned account. ठीक है? तो all of these are secondary or the second category keywords. Then comes the class 3 keywords. And in class 3 keywords, very important is there is something which is explicit, and here explicit is a debate. A debate is explicit here. ठीक है? और जब हम डिबेट करते हैं तो कैन आई से देयर इज अ फॉर व्यू एंड देयर इज अ अगेंस्ट व्यू. ओके, सो in this kind of situation we give more significance to for. ठीक है? So generally ratio क्या होना चाहिए? I always maintain 70% and 30% ratio. ठीक है? और you try to understand this point here. जो ये 70% है, it also includes the implicit which is not written there. What is the implicit? अगर मैं किसी विषय के बारे में, किसी सब्जेक्ट मैटर के बारे में डिबेट करूंगा तो आई विल ऑल्सो हैव टू लिटिल बिट राइट अबाउट व्हाट एंड व्हाई. So it is already there, it is implicit in that. So here what plus why is implicit. So वो 70% में included है. I hope you get this point. The type of questions or keywords, secondary keywords UPSC has been frequently asking is like discuss, examine, evaluate. ठीक है? So such type of keywords are your category 3 keywords. ठीक है? Then there is class 4. Class 4. Class 4 here explicit is a critical debate. Critical debate is explicit. Okay, so in this, if you talk about here, I give for limited 50%, and remember for में क्या क्या included है? Implicit is also included. ठीक है? Implicit which includes what and why, and here I will increase the amount of the share of criticism. ठीक है? So here against, if you talk about, will be also 50%. वहाँ पे criticism was only 30%, here it becomes 50% of the space. ठीक है? You would have seen that these are keywords like critically, examine, critically evaluate, or write a critique. ठीक है? All of these are falling under this category. अब इसमें मैंने दो keywords नहीं बात की, and these two keywords are comment, give your opinion. ये भी दो keywords बहुत यूज हुए हैं एग्जाम में. So when there is comment or give your opinion, it is giving me little bit liberty. little bit of freedom. So I can go for either writing it as class 3 or class 4 depending upon my understanding of the subject matter. ठीक है. So this means कि जो comment give your opinion, these type of keywords will fall somewhere between 3 and 4. आइडियली अगर मेरे को अच्छी नॉलेज है तो मुझे 50-50 मेंटेन करना चाहिए, बट अगेन इट विल डिपेंड अपॉन द सब्जेक्ट मैटर. लाइक सपोज मैं फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी में लिख रहा हूँ तो हो सकता है वहाँ पे उतना क्रिटिसिज्म ही ना हो. ठीक है. सो अगेन इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द सब्जेक्ट मैटर. तो दिस इज क्लास 4. एक और ऑप्शनल में एक और हायर डिफिकल्टी लेवल का कीवर्ड भी पूछा गया है एंड दैट इज फॉर्मुलेट अ पॉलिसी. ठीक है. तो मैं उसको बोलता हूं क्लास 5 कीवर्ड. सो इट इज फॉर्मुलेट अ पॉलिसी. लाइक एक क्वेश्चन पूछा गया है, फॉर्मुलेट अ सुटेबल एग्रीकल्चरल पॉलिसी फॉर इंडिया और डेवलपमेंट ऑफ अंडमान निकोबार और एनीथिंग. So when I am talking about here, this question is asking me to become a policy maker. So policy maker क्या करता है? Can I say कि इसमें explicit is to provide policy, that is solutions. Policy gives us solutions, so I have to give the solutions. But can I say there is implicit? And implicit is should the solution be according to situation. ठीक है. So can I say I will have to here identify the situation, that means the characteristics, and tell me, can I say these characteristics, some of these characteristics are wanted and some of these characteristics are unwanted. So some of the characteristics we can call them as desirable while other are undesirable characteristics. ठीक है. Obviously we want to get rid of the undesirable ones, we want to improve upon that. तो कोई भी पॉलिसी बनाने से पहले हमें क्या करना होगा? सबसे पहले प्रॉब्लम को तो समझना होगा. ठीक है. एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग द प्रॉब्लम विल रिक्वायर अगेन दिस एनालिसिस आल्सो इज पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ दैट. सो हियर द डिफिकल्टी लेवल बिकम्स इवन मोर. आई होप इट इज क्लियर. सो व्हेन यू आर राइटिंग योर आंसर, हैबिट बना लो कि हाथ में पेन होना चाहिए क्वेश्चन रीड करते टाइम. मैंने अपना तरीका बना रखा था कि मैं प्राइमरी कीवर्ड को बॉक्स बनाता था एंड सेकेंडरी कीवर्ड को अंडरलाइन करता था. ठीक है. You can make your own way so that you do this while reading the question कि कौन सा primary keyword है, कौन सा secondary keyword है. ठीक है. I hope it is clear. Okay. Coming back to our question, a region may be economically underpopulated but ecologically overpopulated. Explain with suitable examples. क्या लिखना था इसमें? अभी मैंने पढ़ा है तुम लोगों को इसके बारे में. Tell me. ठीक है. यू आर करेक्ट बट यू आर स्टिल योर आंसर इज लाइक, एक होता है ना कि मुझे सबसे पहली चीज क्वेश्चन में जब भी मैं पढ़ता हूं, my idea is always to understand the basic theme of that question. What is that basic theme? क्या अभी हमने एक चीज पढ़ी क्या अभी हमने ये देखा था कि these concepts are not absolute, primarily they are what? Relative. ठीक है। अब जब ये चीज मेरे दिमाग में आ गई, अब वापस से क्वेश्चन को पढ़ो, क्या ये इसी रिलेटिविटी की बात कर रहा है? A region may be economically underpopulated but ecologically overpopulated. I hope you get this point. So, can I say the best way to start my answer will be with this theme itself? So, can I say concepts of over? अगर मैं introduction लिख रहा होता एग्जाम में तो कैसे लिखता? The concepts of over, under, and optimum population are relative and not absolute concepts. Are relative and not absolute concepts. Can you understand कि मैंने इंट्रोडक्शन में ही एग्जामिनर को बता दिया कि आई हैव अंडरस्टूड व्हाट यू आर ट्राइंग टू डू. ठीक है. सो हियर इटसेल्फ देन इसी को इलाबोरेट करेंगे. सबसे पहले मेन बॉडी में आई विल टॉक अबाउट इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन. ठीक है. और अंडरस्टैंडिंग depends upon perspectives. Understanding कह सकता हूं या evaluation. I could have actually written here something like evaluation of population resource ratio depends upon what? The perspectives. ठीक है. Can I give example of this? For example, माल्थूजियन के हिसाब से he understands these phenomena from more ecological perspective. Are you getting my point? ठीक है. So, for example, Malthusians understand this relationship more from ecological, या फिर इसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? कैरिंग कैपेसिटी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. कैरिंग कैपेसिटी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. माल्थस के लिए एक स्पेस की अपनी लिमिट्स हैं. क्या मैं कह सकता हूं डेजर्ट की लिमिट अलग होगी, फर्टाइल लैंड की लिमिट अलग होगी? यस और नो? सो टेल मी, can we say this is the carrying capacity of a desert? Can we say that this will be the carrying capacity of a humid region, humid fertile region की कैरिंग कैपेसिटी ज्यादा होगी? सो वो चीजों को कैसे समझता है, लिमिट्स को कैसे समझता है? He understands from the perspective of ecology. Can you understand this point? कि in case of Malthus, the limits here will be reached faster, and here can we say it will take time to reach those limits? ठीक है। सो माल्थस के लिए ये क्या है, इकोलॉजिकल कंसेप्ट है। बट अगर मैं मार्क्स की बात करूं, मार्क्स के लिए ये क्या है, इट इज अ इकोनॉमिक कंसेप्ट फॉर मार्क्स। ठीक है। सो वी कैन से ऑन द अदर हैंड, for marks, these are economic in nature. ठीक है। रिजल्ट ऑफ व्हाट, रिजल्ट ऑफ unequal distribution of resources. For example, for him overpopulation is what, it is result of unequal distribution of resources. So which type of situation will arise, whether it will be underpopulated, overpopulated or optimum populated, it will depend upon what, distribution of resources. ठीक है। So it is not about the absolute case of the resource. I hope it is clear. अब मैंने इतना लिख लिया तो मैंने आई हैव पेड द वे टू फुल्ली नाउ कम टू द पॉइंट ऑफ व्हाट द क्वेश्चन इज टॉकिंग अबाउट। कैन आई से कि मैं एक हेडिंग डालूंगा, व्हेन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस एक डायग्राम होना चाहिए वहां पर। जैसे ही मैंने अपना इंट्रोडक्शन लिखा उसके बाद सीधा दिस फर्स्ट डायग्राम शुड कम। ठीक है। नाउ इट इज सेइंग a region may be economically underdeveloped. So can I say, after once I have given this, I'll say economically underdeveloped. Economically underdeveloped region. So when there will be an underdeveloped region, can I write the definition here जो हमने लिखी थी? Underdevelopment, if you talk about, it can be function of either there is less population or there is less technological development. So in a region, this occurs if there is less population to exploit the resources, or there is less technological development, less technological development to convert available resource base to actual resource. To actual resource. I hope it is clear. अभी हम यहां पर एग्जाम्पल नहीं देते हैं, पहले अपना काम पूरा कर लेते हैं फिर एग्जाम्पल देंगे। ठीक है। इनफैक्ट वो जो डायग्राम अभी हमने देखा, कैन आई से कि ये डायग्राम मैं यहां पे बना सकता हूं, वेयर आई कैन शो वेयर एक्चुअली इज द situation of under population existing. I hope it is clear. Tell me fast. Okay. So I'll explain. Here it is like this, existing. Then I will talk about second keyword कौन सा था अपना, ecologically overpopulated, तो मैं उसकी heading डालूंगा ecologically overpopulated. ठीक है। Now tell me, can we say that same area which is underpopulated, can it also be simultaneously overpopulated from ecological point of view? ठीक है। There may be certain kind of technologies which are being used and they are causing what, lots of problem, ecological problems they are causing. ठीक है। So same region can also display ecologically overpopulated characteristics. Ecologically overpopulated characteristics. What will be those characteristics? Like for example, environmental degradation. So it will be in various forms of environmental degradation. Environmental degradation. Or why it is so? Because every region has its own carrying capacity, which is different from its economic potential. Okay? So why it is so? As every region has its own ecological carrying capacity. Ecological carrying capacity, which is different from its economic potential. Its economic potential. At this point of time, can I say should be drawing this kind of diagram where I am showing that how if the population overshoots the carrying capacity, what will happen? There will be collapse. A collapse will be taking place. So the second diagram will come with the second point. ठीक है? इसके साथ क्या मुझे इसके साथ कुछ केस स्टडीज या एग्जांपल्स देने चाहिए? Yes or no? This is the point I can talk about. Like for example, take the case study of Sahel. Density is just 20 per kilometer square, yet livestock and fuel wood pressure on low net primary productivity region, which is there, net primary productivity drylands, drives desertification southward. There is extreme desertification taking place in that region. Take another example, Western Rajasthan. So if you talk about the case of Western Rajasthan, sparse settlement, but recent times में क्या हुआ है? Indira Gandhi Canal has been induced, and there is problems emerging, various type of problems like water logging, salinity. बाद में देखेंगे, malaria has become epidemics, like malaria have become also a big problem in that area. ठीक है? So there is what? It is still, अगर हम economic point of view से देखें, तो क्या वो एरिया अभी भी अंडर पॉपुलेटेड है? क्या हम अभी भी नेटवर्क ऑफ कैनाल्स को बढ़ा सकते हैं? लेकिन कैन आई से कि डिस्पाइट दैट स्टिल वी आर सीइंग द प्रॉब्लम्स रिलेटेड विद इकोलॉजी. ठीक है? So because it is a 10 marker, you will not have too much of space to write. I would suggest this is the stronger case study which you should be writing, the case of Rajasthan. I hope it is clear. ठीक है? So I'll write this case study here. Finally, I will come to my third and final point of the main body. Why this paradox arises? Why this paradox arises? So क्यों ऐसा paradox आ रहा है? Number one, because they are relative. Already जो हमने बोला कि they are relative concepts, and population is always measured on various factors, whether it is technology or any other. But very important, another problem in these concepts is that these concepts are based upon the understanding of population density as a concept. ठीक है? And if you talk about population density, it is a very vague concept which tells us about the pressure of population on land or resources. ठीक है? So why this paradox arises? Such paradox arises because these concepts, ठीक है, फिर से मैं देखो यहां पर रिकॉल कर रहा हूं हमने जो लिखा था। फर्स्ट लेवल पे जब हम डिफरेंशिएट कर रहे थे तो हमने कौन सा क्राइटेरिया लिया था? पर कैपिटा इनकम। सेकेंड लेवल पे जब हम डिफरेंशिएट कर रहे थे डिसइक्विलिब्रियम को बिटवीन ओवर एंड अंडर पॉपुलेशन, विच क्राइटेरिया वी हैड चूजन? पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी एज अ क्राइटेरिया, ठीक है। सो what we are trying to say here, why this paradox is arising, because these concepts, और दो कंसेप्ट पूछे हैं क्वेश्चन में, ओवर पॉपुलेशन अंडर पॉपुलेशन, आर बेस्ड अपॉन और आर बेस्ड अपॉन द measurement of population density, पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी, ठीक है। अब एक चीज यहां पर समझ लेते हैं, जब हम पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी की बात करते हैं, पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी इज अ वेरी वेग कंसेप्ट। व्हाई? पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी, हाउ वी मेजर? Population upon area, that is how we are measuring how much population is there in a particular area. Now the problem is that it tells us about the all area, total area. Can I say all of that area is not necessarily productive? Yes or no? So this population density, which is the most popular form of population density, we call it as the arithmetic density of population. It is referred to as the arithmetic density of population. So it is what? It is a vague concept. It is a vague concept which takes into account the total area, which takes into account the total area of a given region rather than only taking the productive area. Rather than only taking the productive area. I hope it is clear. ठीक है, think करो. I'll just come. Let me give the example. We are talking about Egypt. Think of Egypt. Egypt is essentially what? It is a desert. There is only 10% of the area of Egypt which is occupied by Nile and its valley. Okay. However, 90% of the population of Egypt is living where? In just that 10% of that area of Nile valley. ठीक है, उस हिसाब से देखें तो can we say it is overpopulated? Yes or no? So this is what we are trying to say. Arithmetic density as a concept, it is doing what? It is giving a vague idea. ठीक है, it is talking aggregate land area. However, ideally what should be done? Productive land area should be taken. और इसलिए population density को measure करने के लिए नए methods are also there, and what these methods are? One is referred to as the physiological density. Physiological density. What is physiological density? जैसे हमने देखा कि अरिथमेटिक डेंसिटी का फॉर्मूला क्या था? इट वाज टोटल पॉपुलेशन अपॉन टोटल एरिया, ठीक है। ऑन द अदर हैंड फिजियोलॉजिकल डेंसिटी इज मेजर ऑफ टोटल पॉपुलेशन अपॉन नेट सोन एरिया, नेट सोन एरिया। अब some scholars say कि in this you are over exaggerating the pressure of population, because some of this population may be urban, they are dependent upon resources from elsewhere like import of food, so it doesn't tells the actual pressure. So they have given another conception, we call it as agricultural density, agricultural density. So here it is total population dependent on agriculture upon the net sown area, upon the net sown area. I hope you understood. So where the problem arises, why the paradox arises, because we are measuring Rajasthan, the total area of Rajasthan, and we are calling it as what? Underpopulated. ठीक है? If you actually look from how much of the area is actually being productively used, we'll find that maybe it will come to overpopulated category, like the case of Egypt. ठीक है? So this is what we have written, total area of a given region rather than only taking the productive area. ठीक है? So this makes it look like underpopulated economically, underpopulated economically. ठीक है? So again, now I have also explained the why this kind of paradoxical situation. Can I say कि conclusion में अगर मुझे लिखना है तो can I include these terms? Can I write up my conclusion along these terms? Thus, while ascertaining the population resource ratio for population policy, it is better to rely on concepts like physiological density or agricultural density. We can write in conclusion, thus, while ascertaining the population resource ratio for population policy, comma, it is better to rely on measures like physiological density or agricultural density. I hope समझ में आ गई बात? Tell me. तो अभी मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले एक चीज बोली थी, everything that comes out of my mouth should be treated as gospel. रिलेटिव एब्सोल्यूट पढ़ा हमने, एंड कैन यू सी कि किस तरह से क्वेश्चन को मैंने बनाया, दैट इट वाज अल्टीमेटली आई जस्ट वांटेड टू टीच यू अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थीम ऑफ हाउ दीज कंसेप्ट्स आर रिलेटिव एंड दे आर नॉट एब्सोल्यूट. ठीक है? और इसमें हमने एक और चीज लर्न कर ली. एक बार टेस्ट में मैंने एक क्वेश्चन पूछा, एक्सप्लेन द वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी. ठीक है? What was the result? What would have been the result? उस क्वेश्चन में सबको जीरो मिला, सबको. And I'm talking about 2018 when there was around 300 students were writing the test in that. सबको जीरो मिला, एक को भी नहीं पता था कि पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी के टाइप्स होते हैं, अर्थमेटिक डेंसिटी, फिजियोलॉजिकल डेंसिटी एंड एग्रीकल्चरल डेंसिटी. सबने जो लिखा वो क्या लिखा? हाई, मीडियम एंड लो. ठीक है, those are measures, they are not, they are conditions which are talking about. Here we are talking about the measures of population density. How you will measure population density? Population density is a concept. What is the purpose of population density? It is trying to, it is a way which is through which we are trying to understand population resource ratio. That is the purpose of population density. अब वो हम कई तरीके से कर सकते हैं. अर्थमेटिक डेंसिटी इज वन वे, बट एज वी सेड इट इज वेरी वेग, बट देर आर अदर्स विच वी टॉक्ड अबाउट. आई होप इट इज क्लियर. एक क्वेश्चन और कर लेते हैं, देन विल टेक अ ब्रेक. दिस इज हाउ इट विल कीप गोइंग. सो इट इज ऑल्सो अ 10 मार्कर. Climate change may produce overpopulation without any increase in population. Increase in population. Comment. So your time starts now. Okay, Imam, thank you. I think slip of tongue होगा वो. Okay. कैसे लिखेंगे इसको? क्लाइमेट चेंज में प्रोड्यूस ओवर पॉपुलेशन विदाउट एनी इंक्रीज इन पॉपुलेशन. एक चीज जस्ट बिफोर आई कंटिन्यू, एक चीज मैं भूल गया. इट वॉज देयर, आई हैड गिवन. कैन यू सी? यहाँ पे मैंने पैराडॉक्स को दिखाने के लिए भी एक डायग्राम बना रखा है. सो वेयर आई एम शोइंग द पैराडॉक्स. सो दिस इज द पैराडॉक्स रीजन वेयर अंडर economic and over ecological situation is existing. So here we are talking about ecological status and here we are talking about the economic status. ठीक है. So जो regions हमने बात की है वो कहाँ पर है? They are located here. ठीक है. एंड दिस इज, देखो इसीलिए मैं बार बार बोलता हूँ, many times it happens कि जब एग्जाम होता है और पेपर का मैं डिस्कशन लेता हूँ उसमें आई गिव अ कंपैरिजन ऑफ व्हाट वी डिड इन द क्लास क्वेश्चन एंड व्हाट वाज आस्क्ड इन द एग्जामिनेशन। ठीक है, अब मेरे क्वेश्चंस को कोई पढ़ेगा और उसको उसके आंसर्स नहीं पता होंगे कि मैंने उसको कैसे डिस्कस किया, तो वो समझ ही नहीं पाएगा कि वो कैसे एग्जाम में पूछा गया है। ओनली दोज पीपल हु आर प्रेजेंट इन द क्लास कैन एक्चुअली अंडरस्टैंड, बिकॉज वी आर डिस्कसिंग, जब हम उसको डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं तो वी आर डिस्कसिंग इट फ्रॉम वेरियस एंगल्स, मल्टीपल डायमेंशंस, और इस वजह से it is not just 500 plus, it is actually many themes we touch, more than 500 plus themes we will touch। ठीक है, और इसी दिस इज द रीजन यू विल बी फाइंडिंग कि 60-70% जो पेपर होता है वो उसी से आता है हर साल, क्योंकि यही तो ज्योग्राफी है ना। ज्योग्राफी से बाहर थोड़ी पूछेगा यूपीएससी, घुमा फिरा करके अगर इफ दे आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस दे विल आस्क फ्रॉम दीज थीम्स ओनली, वर्डिंग्स में भी डिफरेंट बट थीम थोड़ी चेंज हो जाएगा। ओके, सो climate change may produce overpopulation without any increase in population। What was the theme? पहले क्वेश्चन में मैंने तुम लोगों को सिखाया कि when you are reading the question, try to find the dominant macro theme। What was the macro theme? ठीक है, मतलब that is the primary keyword, but I am talking about theme। Okay, I will tell you, and now little bit feel ashamed कि तुम लोगों ने सीखा नहीं। Can I say that here the theme was that these concepts are dynamic in nature? Yes or no? If a country is said to be today optimally populated, is it possible in future it can become overpopulated or it can become underpopulated? I hope you are getting my point। ठीक है, सो अगर आज की डेट में देखें तो वी आर कॉलिंग द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज एज लोकेटेड इन द कंडीशन ऑफ ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन। ठीक है, यूरोपियन टाइप, अमेरिकन टाइप अभी हमने बोला ऑप्टिममली पॉपुलेटेड है। बट थिंक करो कि बाद में अभी हम देखेंगे कि टुडे वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सेकंड डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन। इन सेकंड डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन व्हाट इज टेकिंग प्लेस, द फर्टिलिटी रेट्स हैव बिकम वेरी लो एंड पॉपुलेशन डिक्लाइन इज टेकिंग प्लेस। ठीक है, तो अगर इसी तरह से इन कंट्रीज में पॉपुलेशन डिक्लाइन होता रहा तो क्या वो आगे जाकर के अंडर पॉपुलेटेड हो सकते हैं? यस और नो? वेरी हाई चांस दे कैन बिकम अंडर पॉपुलेटेड। सो व्हाट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग, अनदर, एक तो हमने लर्न किया पहले क्वेश्चन में कि दे आर रिलेटिव। रिलेटिव का ही एक डिफरेंट डायमेंशन क्या है, दे आर ऑल्सो डायनेमिक कंसेप्ट्स, दे आर चेंजेबल। ठीक है, दे चेंज विथ द लेवल्स ऑफ पॉपुलेशन। इसके अंदर दो चीजें हैं, न्यूमरेटर में क्या है, पॉपुलेशन है, एंड डिनोमिनेटर में क्या है, रिसोर्स है। तो दोनों में से कोई भी मैं चेंज कर दूं तो देन व्हाट विल हैपन, कैन आई से द सिचुएशन विल चेंज। ठीक है, टेक दिस डायग्राम्स टू अंडरस्टैंड। यहां पर पॉपुलेशन का मैंने जो डायग्राम बनाया, पॉपुलेशन इज सेम, पॉपुलेशन इज नॉट चेंजिंग, बट कैन वी से क्लाइमेट चेंज व्हाट इट विल डू, will it reduce the resource base? For example, if there is sea level rise, will there be land submergence taking place and there will be resource declining? ठीक है, so carrying capacity here is shown as what, declining। So the situation which was earlier maybe optimum populated, it would become what, overpopulated। I hope you are getting my point। ठीक है, सेम थिंग हियर आई हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट एंड बायो कैपेसिटी के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से। यहाँ पर हम पॉपुलेशन को दिखा रहे थे, यहाँ पे वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट। ठीक है, यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट? व्हाट इज इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट, हाउ मच वी आर कंज्यूमिंग। ठीक है, सो इट इज नॉट जस्ट, यहाँ पर व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज पॉपुलेशन साइज फैक्टर। इस वाले डायग्राम में मैं कौन से फैक्टर को दिखा रहा हूं, एफ्लुएंस वाले फैक्टर को, एफ्लुएंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी। हियर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ए प्लस टी। कैन आई से अवर इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट इज फंक्शन ऑफ दिस? ठीक है, सो इट इज नॉट ए प्लस टी बट ऑल्सो पी, इट इज फंक्शन ऑफ पैट। ओके, So again, if biocapacity is declining, what will happen? There will be ecological deficit, which we will call it as overpopulation. I hope you get this point. So that is what we had to talk about here. So climate change may produce overpopulation without any increase in population comment. So if I was writing, again I would say something like this, that the concept, क्योंकि इसमें अंडर पॉपुलेशन पूछा नहीं है, तो मैं सीधी केवल ओवर पॉपुलेशन की बात कर लेता हूं डायरेक्टली इसके अंदर. सो आई विल से ओवर पॉपुलेशन is a dynamic concept, is a dynamic concept. Conception over it changes with change in either population size or resource base, or the resource base. Then I'll come to the main body. And here, can I say that I have to talk about the ongoing and continuing global warming or climate change is expected to do what? It is expected to reduce the resource base. ठीक है? So the ongoing climate change or the global warming is expected to reduce the resource base, is expected to reduce the resource base. अब क्या मैं यहाँ पे बता सकता हूँ कि कैसे एग्जेम्प्लीफाई कर सकता हूँ कि हाउ इट कैन ultimately affect the resource base? So tell me, what are the ways in which it can affect the resource base? Like for example, one, falling agricultural capacity. Global warming, several research has shown that what is happening, NPP is reducing. ठीक है? So falling agricultural capacity, falling agricultural capacity. So several reports have shown that heat stress is leading to fall in net primary productivity of crops, fall in the net primary productivity of the crops. ठीक है? Then other way in which it is taking place, can we talk about shrinking resource base? Shrinking resource base. So number of type of resources are shrinking. Like for example, is global warming driving, if you talk about melting of the glaciers and leading to changes in the regime of rivers? Yes or no? So like I can give example that there is glacial retreat taking place, and due to glacial retreat, river regimes changing, river regimes are changing. कैसे regimes change होंगी? इंडिया में अगर हम हिमालयन रिवर्स की रिजीम की बात करें तो नॉर्मली क्या होता है? दिस इज So how the rivers have, the Himalayan rivers have the regime? Here this is the dry phase. इस तरह का regime होता है कुछ. Now if the glaciers are melting, can I say कि ये वाले phase में if the glaciers have become smaller, dry phase में water क्या और कम हो जाएगा? Yes or no? So with the changes during the dry phase, the water will become what? Lesser. और इस समय ये chances हैं कि ज़्यादा बढ़ भी सकता है जो peak है. ठीक है, although peak पे बहुत ज़्यादा असर नहीं डालेगा because peak is more related with what? Rainfall related. But one thing is very clear, dry season में उसका बहुत impact होगा. यानी कि जो rivers हम Himalayan rivers कहते हैं, they are perennial. Is it possible that in future they can become seasonal? Are you getting my point? So again, what is happening? There is shrinking of the resource. Second way in which it is taking place. Third, there is territorial loss. There is territorial loss. So can I give example of sea level change and submergence of coastal areas? Land submergence is a very good example where there is territorial loss also taking place because of this. ठीक है? Then if you talk about other things like there is also a forced redistribution. There can be forced redistribution. So you must have heard about climatic migration, which is result of what? Such climatic problems arising, hazards taking place or other type of climatic stresses leading to out migration. So that is what we are calling it as climatic migration. So tell me, is it possible that climatic migration in the destination can create overpopulation? Yes or no? So in the destination can create overpopulation. ठीक है. For example, इसका best example है 2015 Ethiopian famines. 2015 Ethiopian famines. They were caused because there was lots of refugee migrants came from on one side Somalia and from other side Sudan. And what happened? They concentrated in Ethiopia. So because of that, this sudden influx of people led to what? Overpopulation. I hope you get this point. So again, this way also it is leading to overpopulation. I hope you get this. So अब जब मैंने ये बता दिया कि कैसे हम यहाँ पर we were talking about ongoing climate change is expected to reduce the resource base. ठीक है, वहाँ पर हम एक अलग पॉइंट लिख सकते थे कि हाउ सॉरी ये अपना जो होगा इनफैक्ट ये चौथा पॉइंट के बजाय हम इसको क्या कह सकते थे? It is not that. It can also lead to increase in population size. वहाँ पे रिसोर्स बेस के 3 पॉइंट्स थे, पॉपुलेशन साइज का 1 पॉइंट है. ठीक है. And finally, once I have talked about this, I can do what? I can explain this relationship now जो इस diagram में है. I can make these diagrams now that even what is taking place, there is no population change. Still, it is leading to what? It is leading to decline in the capacity. बोथ द डायग्राम्स, इसमें से जो भी डायग्राम यूजफुल हो, अच्छा लगे वो बनाओ, दोनों ही, मतलब दोनों बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है, आई हैव गिवन यू फ्रॉम बोथ पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. This one is much more comprehensive because it is talking about the total ecological footprint and not just population size. ठीक है. So both of them you can draw one diagram. एक और diagram दे रखा है. Again it is like how climate change will lead to reduction in NPP, water or resource based shrinkage and the land area or territory loss. तीनों चीजें. एंड अगेन उसकी वजह से व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, देयर इज कैरिंग कैपेसिटी, एज अ रिजल्ट कैरिंग कैपेसिटी रिड्यूस हो जाएगा, उसकी वजह से पॉपुलेशन विल बिकम हायर than the carrying capacity and thus it will lead to what, overpopulation. ठीक है. This also could have been useful. Wherever you can do this kind of innovations, these are highly marks rewarding. Highly I am talking about. Because this reduces the pressure on the examiner. उसको तुम्हारा पूरा कंटेंट नहीं पढ़ना पड़ रहा है. इस डायग्राम ने जो हमने लिखा है, क्या उसको शॉर्ट में समझा दिया इन जस्ट फ्यू वर्ड्स? ठीक है. So this diagram along with one of those diagrams will do the trick. One more thing I could have done if it was not a 10 marker. I am saying अगर 10 मार्कर है तो इससे ज़्यादा लिखने का तो स्कोप ही नहीं है अपने पास. बट अगर ये 10 मार्कर नहीं होता तो आई कुड हैव ऑल्सो गिवन सम केस स्टडीज. ठीक है. सुंदरबन डेल्टा का केस स्टडी, यू नो देर इज लॉस ऑफ लैंड टेकिंग प्लेस बिकॉज ऑफ द राइजिंग सी लेवल. लेक चड इज श्रिंकिंग. ठीक है. दैट इज ऑल्सो अ वेरी गुड एग्जाम्पल ऑफ दैट because of the climate change. So I could have given the case study as well to explain this phenomena. I hope it is clear. Conclusion में क्या लिखना चाहिए हमें? What should be conclusion here? एक तो समरी हो सकता है. Can we say that thus these concepts like over, under and optimum population are not static but moving thresholds? And we should do what? We should identify the factors on which they depend and formulate our policies on those factors, changing those factors, making them more favorable. ठीक है. So this is one. और directly मैं कोई एडवाइस देना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि यहाँ पे स्पेशली क्लाइमेट चेंज से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है, तो यू नो कि समथिंग रिलेटेड विथ मिटिगेशन अडेप्टेबिलिटी which will be required for the future. Again, that is the second line of conclusion that you can draw. ठीक है. So एक conclusion जो मैंने बोला, it can be, I can say thus overpopulation is a moving threshold. The policy focus should be on factors like technology and distribution than population size only. इसमें एक गलती मैंने की है and you people also not corrected me. And what was that mistake? Keyword was comment. ठीक है. इसका मतलब है मुझे क्या करना है, कुछ क्रिटिक भी लिखना है इसका. ठीक है. So if I have to write about this critique, can I write some critique here? So conclusion से पहले सॉरी एक क्रिटिक भी आएगा. Shortcomings or the critique of this idea. So tell me, will there be people who will disagree with this idea? क्या मैं कह सकता हूं कि ये आइडिया is essentially Malthusian? Yes or no? It is talking about decline in the physical capacities. This idea is essentially Malthusian and thus has been criticized by, उसको criticize करने वाले कौन से होंगे? A और T, यानी कि political economy thinkers and technology, technocentric. So we'll talk about that. This idea is essentially Malthusian. So as a result, it has been criticized by cornucopians and political economy thinkers. For example, cornucopian like बोसरूप. ठीक है, जब हम इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी पढ़ेंगे तो व्हेन विल टॉक अबाउट क्रिटिक ऑफ वॉन थ्यूनेन, देयर वी विल ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट बोसरूप्स एग्रीकल्चरल थ्योरी. ठीक है, सो cornucopians like Boserup believe that scarcity of net sown area leads to innovations and intensification. And intensification. Can we say that we are already developing vertical farming? Yes or no? So there is already the case of vertical farming. ठीक है. Similarly, another if I have to take, so एक cornucopian criticism हो गया हमारा. Then political economy thinkers like Amar Sen believe that such problems are entitlement related. Entitlement related than of absolute availability. Than of absolute availability. एक चीज, just one more thing that we need to know. There will be certain terms which will come जो कि बाद में जिनका एक्सप्लेनेशन होगा जब उस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक्स में आएंगे. लाइक ये जो सेन का आइडिया है, एंटाइटलमेंट हो गया, अदर्स आइडिया रिलेटेड विद दैट आई विल बी एक्सप्लेनिंग व्हेन वी विल स्टडी इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी टॉपिक ऑफ फेमाइन. ठीक है, वहां पर मैं डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन करूंगा, अदर मॉडल्स भी एक्सप्लेन करूंगा. सो एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम अगर कोई चीज समझ में नहीं आती है तो मैं उसको अपने रास्ते का रोड़ा नहीं बनने दूंगा. आई विल नॉट लेट इट बिकम अ रोड ब्लॉक. आई विल जस्ट मेमोराइज इट एंड मूव ऑन, हैविंग द ट्रस्ट इन द टीचर कि वो आगे आएगा समझ में. ठीक है, बिकॉज कैन यू अंडरस्टैंड कि मैं अगर एक एक पॉइंट समझाने लगा तो इट विल नॉट बी एबल टू फिनिश इट. ओके, सो दैट इज हाउ आई विल राइट अबाउट द क्रिटिसिज्म एंड दैट इज हाउ आई विल अल्टीमेटली फिनिश द आंसर. ठीक है, बिकॉज देयर वाज लॉट्स ऑफ टाइम वेस्टेड टुडे. 15 मिनट्स का एक ब्रेक लेते हैं. ठीक है, एंड अगेन विल मीट एट 1. 15 से 20 मिनट. ठीक है, सो जस्ट हैव अ ब्रेक बिकॉज दिस इज हाउ द 500 प्लस क्लासेस यूज्ड टू रन बिफोर ऑल्सो. 2 आवर्स के 2 स्लॉट होते थे विथ अ ब्रेक ऑफ 30 मिनट्स. So that is what we will do today also. So we'll have a 20 minutes break because आज हमारा starting में थोड़ा सा time गड़बड़ हो गया, and then we'll continue with our discussion. ठीक है? Those of you who are watching on YouTube, there is also a second link which will be अभी which is already available. So उस link में add हो जाना तुम लोग. ठीक है?